She woke up certain she was going to die. After 4 exhausting years, battling a lymphoma that had spread throughout her body, her strength was gone. That morning, her vision seemed unreal, as if the world were slightly blurred. Her husband drove intense silence toward the hospital. Every red light felt like a verdict. When they arrived, the oncologist's expression said it all. 2 late organs failing. Lungs filled with fluid lesions on the skin. Tumors growing like lemons along the lymphatic system. She won't make it through the night, they said. But what no one expected was that, right there, between machines and grim prognosis, the most alive part of her story was about to begin. Welcome to the channel here. We share real stories of people who touched the edge between life and death. Stories that raise questions science still can't answer, and yet have the power to transform your life. Right now, if this kind of story intrigues you, hit that like button and stay until the end. Because today, there's a turning point no one sees coming, and it may just change the way you see healing forever. Lying in a coma, she describes suddenly being free of pain. It wasn't an escape. It was as if another form of perception had taken over. Without her 5 senses, she still knew exactly what was happening around her. The doctor's conversations, her husband's silent despair, the clinical choreography of tubes and monitors. As she arose, as she calls it, the feeling was expansion. The body below seemed far too small to contain. The consciousness that was widening, and along with this expansion came a presence, a love without conditions. So complete, it needed no proof of worthiness. How to explain it, she says it wasn't a place. It was a state in that state. She saw her father, who had died years earlier, and also her best friend lost to cancer. There were no words, only a kind of direct communication through pure emotion. And with this clarity came a painful and liberating understanding. For years, she had lived trying to fit into other people's molds. The small denials of herself, repeated again and again, had come with a cost. No, it wasn't her fault, but it was as though constant fear and continuous self-betrayal had shrunk her life. And where life shrinks, something withers. She speaks of a great woven fabric of existence. Life wasn't a straight line, but an intricate design, each thread being people. Choices and moments, seeing the whole tapestry. She understood her own value, not the value of meeting expectations, but of existing fully, and then came the boundary. Not a door, not a tunnel of light, but a change in energy if she crossed it. There would be no return. That's when her father told her, "This far, my daughter. If you go beyond, you won't come back." Along with this warning came a startling revelation, so specific it feels like a script. If she chose to return to her body, now that she understood who she really was, the healing would happen quickly, in days, not months. This is the first great key to her story. Healing for her began at the very moment fear lost control. It wasn't about replacing medicine with positive thinking. It was about ending the silent contract with self, denial, living in her own truth. That was the medicine she now understood was essential, along with whatever the doctors could offer. On this side, when she reopened her eyes later that next afternoon, the hospital room was the same, but she was not. There were still tubes, still machines, still numbers. But something began to happen that astonished the doctors. In just a few days, the tumors began to shrink so rapidly that the reports themselves had to record. No triumphalism, no Hollywood miracle. Procedures were done, treatments applied, but the speed of her turnaround left specialists scratching their heads. For her, the explanation was simple. The self that returned was no longer the same. And if this story has already made you think, just imagine what's still to come. So take a moment and subscribe now, because every week I bring you real accounts like this, filled with details you won't find in a social media summary. Stories that challenge the way we see life. And you won't want to miss the next one. When she returned, she didn't just bring back a recovering body. She brought back a new lens. From then on, saying no when it was really no became an act of health. Redrawing boundaries became a way to respect her own immune system. And yes, she worked with her doctors to understand what had happened. Some attributed her recovery to the combination of medical procedures and subsequent treatments, reminding correctly. that some lymphomas respond dramatically when the body is given a chance. Others, after reviewing her case, admitted that this recovery had something unusual about it. For her, the synthesis was clear mind, body, and that mysterious dimension of unconditional love had met at a turning point. Now put yourself in her place for a second. You lived for years with fear. Fear of disappointing, fear of making mistakes, fear of having already failed, fear of the diagnosis, fear of the treatment, fear of pain, and suddenly you find a state where fear has no power. It's not denial, it's not running away. It's as though fear itself simply loses its throne. What happens to the body when it no longer lives under constant alarm? What happens to your choices when you no longer betray yourself? What happens to your face, your sleep, your digestion, your voice? Maybe we can't measure all of this on a chart, but we can feel it. She also talks about returning to relationships, and anyone who thinks that after such an experience, everything turns into sunshine is mistaken. It didn't. Friends and family wanted the old version of her back. It was more comfortable for them, but the old her no longer existed. Staying true to what she had learned there, living without fear, without shrinking, meant tough conversations, changes, uncomfortable choices. Integrating the experience was the real challenge. And here comes the second key that you can carry into your own life today. Turning points don't just happen in hospital beds. They're confirmed in everyday life, in the courage to live what you know is true for you. Another delicate point she makes, not turning illness into spiritual blame. She doesn't say that negative thoughts cause cancer or that positive thoughts cure everything. What she does say is that living outside of yourself comes with a cost, and that healing, when it's possible, is a mixture of many factors: medicine choices, environment, relationships, meaning working together. And sometimes, even with all of that, healing doesn't come when it doesn't. That too needs respect. The value of her account isn't in promising miracles, but in pointing to a direction. Stop abandoning yourself clinically. For those who like data, the sequence is clear. After waking up, the recovery progressed at extraordinary speed. The tumors shrank dramatically within days, and in a matter of weeks, she was charged continuing rehabilitation to regain her strength and mobility. What came next? You probably already know: books, lectures, interviews, and a message repeated countless times. Not because it's a cliche, but because so many need to hear it more than once. Live without fear and live as who you really are. If you've made it this far, here's a simple, concrete challenge for today. Nothing mystical, choose one. No, you've been swallowing and say it, choose one. Yes, you've been postponing and give it. Book that exam you've been avoiding. Sleep an extra hour, eat with attention. Call the person who lifts you up. Step back from the one who drains you. This doesn't cure everything, doesn't fix everything, but it sets the gears moving in the right direction. Sometimes change doesn't start with thunder and lightning. It begins with a small line you finally draw for yourself. And why do stories like hers strike us so deeply? Maybe because on some level, the phrase you see on our thumbnail always stirs a chill. We never really die, at least not the way we think. If there is something beyond, and if that beyond sometimes teaches us how to live better here, then it's worth listening closely, not to imitate, but to remember, to close. One last image she brought back from that dimension. An immense tapestry of colors that don't exist here. Life, with all its knots and flaws, isn't less beautiful because of them. The reverse side of the tapestry may look like a mess of tangled threads, but on the other side, it's art. Maybe we spend much of life staring only at the underside. Maybe, just maybe, certain experiences flip the fabric for an instant, inviting us to keep weaving with more courage. If this story touched you, if you want to hear others and build your own vision, slowly without pressure, subscribe now and turn on notifications. In the next episode, I'll bring you a story that contrasts with this one, so you can see for yourself where the paths connect and where they diverge. Thank you for staying until the end. Take care of yourself, and just in case, live as though you're already on the other side of fear.